enjoyed making this dress, even though right now I'm questioning my choices. It's currently 4 a.m. So maybe when I sleep or wake up tomorrow, I'll like this dress a lot more. Hi and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If it's the first time you're seeing me, hi and welcome. My name is Fumi, and on this channel I post sewing tutorials, DIYs, thrift flips and all of that. So if you're interested in learning to sew, you're definitely in the right place. I have a bunch of videos that you definitely enjoy, so you might want to check my channel out. Anyway, today we're making this cute dress that I'm wearing right now. I just thought I would make something cute, kind of Valentine's inspired, hence the pink. And my favorite thing is honestly the collar and this lace trim that I put around it. So if you're interested in seeing how this dress was made, then stay tuned. So first off, we're starting with my little illustration here on sort of what I want for the dress. So I really want these side gathers from the white dress, and I'm not too sure about doing the center seam right now. It's not, necessary per se, but it could look nice. So I'm not 100% sure on that, but we'll see. But it's just like mostly a fitted dress with the side gathers and then the puff sleeves, and then we have the white collar that we're going to use our white cotton fabric here for. So both fabrics are cotton fabrics, and yeah. So the pink fabric is going to be all of the dress. The white fabric is just going to be the collar, and then I think I'm going to use the lace trim, like we can see in one of the reference pictures, for the edge of the collars, and then I might put it all around the hem of the dress as well. We're just going to see how this goes, like how this progresses as we go. But of course, first of all, we're starting with the body of the dress itself, which is the most important part. So I have my paper taped up here, and this is what's going to serve as my pattern paper. And I'm going to draft just a basic bodice because it's basically a fitted dress, right? But then you have these areas here where like you sort of carve out of the dress, and then using the slash and spread method with your pattern, you create that volume. So let's start with that. All right, so we're starting with our pattern paper here, our improvised pattern paper, and this up here is going to act as a shoulder line. So this is the top, and the hem is going to be somewhere down there. So starting up here, I actually like to, because we're drafting the back piece first, and that's because the back has a zipper that goes down the center back, and it's just easier to draft the back, and then you can use the back, at least in the case of this dress, you can use the back pattern to actually cut out your front piece, as long as you exclude the zipper area. So the first thing that I like to do is to actually mark my zipper allowance. So I usually use 1.5 inches for my zipper allowance, and so I'm just going to mark that all down here, because this part here is going to act as our center back. So I'm just going to go all the way down and mark 1.5 inches, and then just create a straight line out of that. So there we have it, my straight line, which is going to be my zipper allowance. Now we can actually get into the body of the dress. So I'm starting up here at my shoulder line, and every horizontal measurement that we make from this point going forward, we're going to start here, right? So we're going to start after the zipper allowance, not here at the center back, but here after the line, right? So this line is going to be the starting point for all the horizontal measurements. So just keep that in mind. So starting up here, I'm going to measure my shoulder to shoulder measurement divided by 2. I typically just like to extend the line a little bit. It doesn't really matter right now. But next up, we're going to do the neckline. So for the width of the neck, I'm going for 3.5 inches. And then for the depth, I'm just going to go for about 1.5 inches. And so you can see I went ahead and created my neckline, right? So just connecting that 3.5 to the 1.5 that I marked as a depth, right? And now on that end, that line that we marked there for the shoulder, the line that we marked for the shoulder, I'm going to come down by just a little over 1 inch. So you can come down by anywhere from 1 inch to 1.5 inches, but it's just to create that shoulder slope, right? So I've marked that, and I'm going to connect that point to this point right here. Right, so you can see the shoulder slope. Starting from that shoulder slope here, I'm going to mark my armhole measurement. So the depth of my armhole basically, and you get this measurement by taking your bust measurement, dividing that by 6, and then adding 1.5 inches to that. So I also extended that line a bit. So now we sort of have Now we have that, like that L shape at that corner right there. We're going to leave that for now. And then on that same line where we have the armhole and everything, I'm going to take my bust measurement, divide that by 4, and then add an inch for sewing allowance. So I'm going to head to mark that right there, and then I'm going to come and I'm going to start from my shoulder, and I'm going to measure my waistline, right? So this is basically the distance from your shoulder to where your waist falls. So I'm going to mark where my waistline is, and then I'm also going to mark where my hip line is as well. And then I'm just going to go ahead and mark the full length of my dress, since I'm marking all of the horizontal points. So it turns out that the full length that I have here on my paper is exactly the length that I'm going for with my dress. So yeah, that's that. So now we have my waistline and my hip line right there. On the waistline, I'm going to go ahead and take my waist measurement, divide that by 4, and then add 2 inches, 1 inch for sewing allowance, and the other inch because I'm creating a dart. And the midpoint of my dart, of course, is going to be on the waistline. And then on the hip line, I'm going to take my hip measurement, divide that by 4, and then add just an inch to that. And then that's what I'm going to mark. So then I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Right, so now that we have this point right here on the bust line, this on the waist, and that on the hip, on the hem, we're going to go ahead and typically what I like to do is to take my hip measurement and take out, sometimes I take out 1.5 inches, sometimes I take out maybe 2 inches, depends on how fitted you want the dress to be. But in this case, it doesn't really matter because remember, we're going to be carving out this part of the dress anyway. But just for the purpose of drafting this basic bodice block, I'm going to take what we have here on the hip line. I'm going to remove 1.5 inches from that, and that's what I'm going to measure and place on the hem line. So I'm going to connect all of these points together to create the shape of the dress. And so there you have it. We basically have, we're almost done. So we basically have the shape of the dress. So you can see it's starting to, it actually does look like just a regular fitted dress right now. And I went to the L shape that we have here, and I just created a curve right there at the underarm area. And really all that's left to do is to sort of shape the zipper allowance. And what I mean by that is I usually go on the waistline of my zipper allowance, and I just take in 0.5 inch from that. So remember that we have 1.5 inches all the way down. So I take out 0.5 inch at the waistline, and then I sort of just freehand to like ease it back out before reaching, just before the hip line. So something like this, and then do the same thing going upwards as well. So something like that. So we sort of created that dip at the back of the waist, which sort of helps to shape the dress properly, because nobody's back is like just ruler straight like that. So now that we're done with that, one more thing, since we're using the same pattern for the front and the back, I'm just going to go ahead and create the front neckline as well. And from the illustration, the neckline is sort of like a V shape. I don't want mine to be too deep, so this depends on how deep you're willing to make yours. But for me, I'm just going to measure my desired depth, and then I'm going to mark that. So that is the neckline for the front right there. So I'm going to cut it out, and while I cut it, I'm actually just going to follow the neckline for the back instead. And when we're done using this for the back, we can cut that out and then use it to cut the front. I hope that was clear enough. I'm going to go ahead and cut this out right now, and then we can start cutting on our fabric, which is the fun part. One last thing, before we go ahead to start cutting on our fabric, we're actually going to carve out that side of the dress, the part that is going to have the gathers attached. So I think that I'm going to go for something that is slightly above my hip line, but of course not high as my waistline. So it's supposed to fall somewhere in between the waist and the hip. Remember how that, like, those gathers sort of give more volume and give that illusion of like a really, like a more curvy body. So to get that effect, you really want to go somewhere just before, somewhere in between the waist and the hip, right? So I think from my hip line, I could go up by probably 2 inches. I'm going to mark that first of all and just see what that's going to look like. Okay, so this is what we have, right? So I went up 2 inches from my hip line, I marked a straight line there, and from there I sort of curved it, and then I went with my free hand, sort of curved it, and then went straight down. Now the distance between my center front and this right here is 3.5 inches, so this is a 3.5 inch gap, right? And yeah, so I think this is what I'm going for. I really hope that this turns out really good. But yeah, so what I'm going to do is to go ahead and of course cut out this part right here, and with that piece that we cut out, we're not going to throw that away. We're going to do the slash and spread method. So this is basically where, with the intent to create volume, you slash your pattern piece or pieces, like just vertical or horizontal lines, however you want to go, however you are creating volume. So because the gathers are this way, so we're going to cut our pattern piece this way multiple times, and then you spread it out and you cut on your fabric, or you create a new pattern and then you use that to cut on the fabric. So that way, when you bring back that fabric that's supposed to fit in here, it's definitely fuller than the pattern piece that you originally cut out, and that is what creates the volume. The slash and spread method wouldn't be new to anyone who has watched my previous video where I did this green top. I'm going to link that in the description box of this video, just in case you want to see another way or another garment that also use the slash and spread method. But it's really fun, and it's a really fun, an easy way to create volume. So we're just going to go ahead now and cut that out and proceed to the next step. Okay, so now that we've cut out this piece, what I'm going to do is now I'm realizing that I actually should have taken my hip measurement, like what I had here, and marked the same thing at the hem, just so that like this part right here will be more straight. But anyway, lessons learned. So I'm just going to take this right now, and I'm going to draw some vertical lines, and I'm going to try my best to make them equally distant from each other. So but I don't think that's completely necessary. But anyway, let's leave that aside for now. For this piece, which is the main body of the dress, I'm going to go ahead now to cut this out of my dress, or out of my fabric. So because we've already done most of the hard work, which was in drafting the pattern, like this part is really nothing dramatic. We're just basically cutting exactly what we have on our pattern piece. So I'm going to go ahead and pin this paper down. I have my fabric folded over, as you can see, because we need two pieces, right? Because it's cut on the fold, so you need your left side and your right side, right? So I'm cutting the back first, which is why I have the zipper out here. When I'm done using this to cut the back, I'm going to unpin the paper, and then I'm just going to fold over, right? So I can fold away the zipper allowance. So I'm just going to fold it out of sight because the front doesn't have a zipper, right? So I'm going to fold it out of sight, and then I'm going to cut this part right here so I can have that new neckline that we're using for the front. And that is how I would cut the front, because the difference between the front and the back for this pattern is that the front doesn't have a zipper and the front has a deeper neckline. Right, so we have our body pieces all cut out. This is the back and that's the front, because you can see here we have the zipper allowance. And of course, like I explained, I also use the same pattern to cut my front piece. But I just wanted to show you that I ended up deciding to create a front seam. So instead of cutting exactly on the line right here, you can see about ½ an inch, which is going to be the sewing allowance for when I make that front seam. I don't know, it doesn't really serve much of a purpose. I just think I would like a front seam that just runs all the way down at the front of the dress. So this is completely optional and not necessary at all. Now for this piece, I'm going to go ahead now and draw all of the vertical lines that I'm going to use to create the slash and spread. So basically all I did was to draw the first line, and I drew it like I was really random about it. I just drew the first straight line, and now I'm just marking 1.1 inches away from that line, and then I got the second line. So each line, that's the amount of space that I'm using. So this is 1.1 inches, right? So just an inch and then like one other point. So that's the amount of space I'm leaving between each of my little slashes. So I'm now marking those points, and then I'm going to draw all the lines and then cut it out. That's really it. All right, so we have all of the lines, and now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 6 pieces. So I'm just going to follow the line and cut everything out. And then at this point, you want to make sure also that you number your pieces, just so that you know, because we have this curve here, so that you know like which one comes first and all of that. So I've numbered everything, and I'm going to go ahead now and just cut it out. Now that all our pieces have been prepped, I'm going to get my fabric and then place the pattern pieces, and then we finally get to cut it. And here's what we have. So I have the patterns placed on the folded fabric because this is the body of the dress here, right? So we cut this side out for the front and the back, so we need what we're cutting out to wrap around from the front and go all the way to the back on each side. So that's why we're cutting this on a fold. So this side is for the front, the other side goes to the back, and so we're going to cut two of these because we have one on the left side and one on the right side on both sides of the dress, right? So actually what we should be doing is to place these as they are on another piece of paper, pattern paper to be precise, and like go ahead and trace up here to create that shape, right? So you create a whole new pattern which is wider, and then you use that pattern to cut the fabric. But honestly, I'm just running low on patience right now, so I placed it directly on my fabric and I spaced it out roughly about 1.5 inches between each piece, because you want to try to get like very even spacing between the pattern pieces. So now that I have that done, I'm actually going to use my chalk, right? Now that I have that, I'm actually going to use my chalk to sort of trace and create that shape, and then I'm going to follow that and cut it all the way. I left about half an inch here just because also that part is like the trim of the fabric anyway, so I might end up just hemming it away or trimming that off. But yeah, here is what the piece looks like. So we've cut it out and I still have the pattern pieces here, and as you can see there are two of them, so one for each side of the dress, and this is where it's supposed to fit in. So you can see because of the slash and spread, it's much wider than the area where it's supposed to fit. So in order to fit, we're going to have to create those gathers to create the volume. So you see what the slash and spread does. Now that we have most of the body pieces, what's left to cut is the sleeves and the collars. So since the sleeves, we're still using the same fabric, we're going to go ahead now to cut out the sleeves, and then we'll do the collar next. So for the sleeve, this is my armhole area right here, and this is my fabric folded over. I'm kind of working with limited fabric right now. So for the length, I'm just going to use what I have here, which is about 11.5 inches. Yep. So about 11.5 inches. And then for the width, it's just a little over 11 inches as well. Now, if you want more volume, you definitely want to go a little bit longer, because remember, like, these are puff sleeves and they have an elastic band at the hem. So you want to create enough, you want to have enough allowance to fold over for that tunnel where your elastic is going to pass through. And of course, we're going to, at this point, join the sleeve to the shoulder. You need enough allowance for all of that, and to still have fabric to bunch up in order to create that puff, right? So for me, it's just going to be a little puff sleeve, so nothing too big or too dramatic. Now I'm just going to, these are the easiest sleeves ever. Like, I think like these puffy sleeves are so beginner friendly. Case, I'm just going to freehand with my tailor's chalk just a shape that goes like this and swoops in like that. But other than that, I'm cutting exactly what you can see here, and that's going to be my sleeve. So I'm going to do this one, and then I'm going to use this to cut out the other sleeve. So here's what my sleeve looks like, right? I just wanted to show you the shape up here. And so I'm going to use this now to cut out my second sleeve. Okay, so I have my fabric here, and I have the fabric for the collar here as well. So this is my neckline, and we're about to cut the collar. So I just also wanted to add or like explain something from the illustration. We only see the front of the dress, and for a while I contemplated how I wanted this collar to be, and I finally decided that this collar is only going to be visible on the front of the dress. That means we don't have the collar like laying on the shoulder and going all the way to the back. So it's going to be sewn like at the shoulder seam that connects the front to the back of the dress. The collar is also going to be sewn in, so that at the back it looks like it doesn't have a collar, and then at the front you see this. I hope I'm not making a mistake, but I don't know, I just decided to go with that. So we only need the front neckline to decide like how exactly. And remember, like this half an inch that sort of extends like this is going to be like where I make my center front seam. So it's more like a V-neck, it's not really a U-shaped neck, if that makes any sense. So now we're going to get our pattern paper back, right? And our zipper allowance is still folded away because we don't need that anymore. But what I'm really going to do here is to basically draw and try to replicate this shape right here, right? So I'm just going to draw that, how I want the collar to sit, how wide I want it to be in comparison to the shoulder itself, and all of that. And I'm really just freehanding this. So I'm going to draw it, sketch it out, figure out like how exactly I want it to be, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut that out and use that pattern to cut out our actual collar from the fabric. And so of course we're going to need 4 pieces like cutting from the fabric, because we need a front and back for each side, and there's 2 of them, so that's going to be 4 pieces. So yeah, let's get into that. So this is what I have. This is the shape that I sort of created, and I believe that it kind of does look like what I have in the illustration. But yeah, so I'm just going to cut that out and then cut 4 of these out of the white fabric. And then I think the first thing that I want to do is to use my interfacing because you need interfacing when you're trying to create a collar. It sort of like just reinforces it and makes sure it's not like too, I don't know, meh. I guess. Oh my goodness. I created these right here. So this is a facing, right? And it basically just goes on, like it sort of lines the neck area of a dress or a top or whatever. So I created this for the front as well as the back of our dress. I don't know, just I felt bad about not lining it, and I felt like the least I could do was make it facing. So there's no standard like shape exactly for it, right? You just need it to line the neck, and then I like to let it extend at this point to the armhole if I can. So I did that here and just sort of tapered it down like that, and then here's what the one at the back looks like. So just, yeah, so just like that. And we especially need it actually for the back of this dress because we don't have the collar or anything, so of course we need to figure out a way to finish the neck neatly. So yeah, so we have this, and yeah, so I'm going to use my interfacing for the facing pieces and then my collar pieces as well. But for the collar, remember we're cutting 4, so 2 for each collar. You only need to use interfacing on the one that is going to be on top, so the one that we can see. The one that's underneath doesn't need to be like reinforced like that. So yeah, so cutting out the collar and then heading on to use my interfacing. Let's go. Here's our pieces. Okay, not all of our pieces, but most of the pieces of the dress, and I'm really excited because it looks like the collar is coming together and everything. So now we can actually start sewing, which is the fun part. But before we even get into that, unfortunately I unraveled this trim that I got, and this is all there is to it. So it's definitely not going to go all the way around my hem. Now the initial plan was to maybe have it go all the way around the hem and to also use it on the edge of my collar, but seeing as I can't use it on the hem right now, I'm just going to use it for the collar. So simply, like, what I'm going to do is when I'm sewing the collar closed, which actually I should do the collar before I start, like before I get into the rest of the dress, so I should just prep the collar and make sure it's all ready. So all I'm going to do is just to have, like I mentioned, you only need to put interfacing on one of the pieces, which is the one that's going to be front facing. So I'm going to lay them together just as you can see on camera here, right sides of the fabric facing each other, and then I'm going to sew all the way this way, and I'm going to leave this part open because by the time it's laid up like this, it will be closed up when I join the shoulders, the front and the back shoulders together. So it doesn't really matter, like I don't need to close this area, and there's no need to close this area either. So while I'm sewing this part right here, I'm also going to go ahead and put in the trim so that when I turn it right side out, we're going to see the trim peeking out, and I feel like that would really add a nice, like, cute touch to it. So yeah, so like I said, we're going to start up with the collar first of all, and then we'll do the neck and join the shoulders together and like really get into the whole thing. I need to remember that I'm putting dots on my dress, both on the front and the back. If you haven't seen my video where I draft a bodice block for a dress and for a top, I'm going to link both in the comment section, just so you in the description box, just so you see how I typically draft dots, and so this video isn't unnecessarily long. So I'm going to also go ahead and sketch out my dots so that they're ready and prepped for when I start sewing. Here's what the collar looks like, and I'm really proud of this one. I think it looks really cute. I love the idea of the lace trim. I was questioning it before, but now that I actually see it in real life, I think I really like it. So now we have our collars. Prepped. Now onto the dress. So this is the body of the dress, and you can see I've placed my facing, I've like prepped up the dots and everything. And the next thing that I'm going to do is to sew to finish the necklines. So of course, when I'm sewing the facing onto the neckline of the front, I'm also going to make sure I attach my collar, because that's like, it goes in the neckline of the front. So I'm going to attach the facing to the 2 pieces of the front, because as I mentioned before, I'm making a center seam down the front of the dress, down the center front of the dress. So I have 2 pieces of my front, kind of like how we have 2 pieces of the back and the back. I'm also going to go ahead and sew my dots in. Now when it comes to attaching the facing and the collar, you're simply going to, so we have 1 piece of the front here, so I'm going to place my collar just like this, the way it's supposed to be, like that. You can see that there's that 1/2 inch for this front center seam, so that's fine. And then I'm going to bring my facing, and I'm also going to place it right side of the fabric facing this, like this. So I'm going to sew it all the way like this, and then flip the facing to be on the back of the dress. And so we would have our collar, we'll have the neck finished, and then we'll have the facing at the back where it should be. So we're going to do that for the collar and the front neck, and then we're going to do that for the back. Only difference is, of course, there's no collar at the back, so we're just sewing on the facing. So yeah, let's get straight into that. Here is our dress, and I am, oh my goodness, the more this dress comes together, the more excited I get. So these are our 2 back pieces, and this is the front right here. Now as you can see, the dots are the dots are done, the collar is done and everything. So the next thing that we're going to do is to join it by the shoulders, which is why I've laid it out like this, right? So I'm just going to join the shoulders, and what I'm really going to do is to open it up like this, both of them, the front and the back. And as it's opened up like this, I'm going to join them both like this way, so that way the rough edges are inside, are sandwiched in between. So once it's laid out like this, both like from the front of the dress and from the back, you won't see like the rough edges, which I really love. So we're going to join the shoulders, both shoulders, and then I'm going to go ahead and top stitch the neck, and then I'm going to go ahead and press that nicely. Right, so we're all done with top stitching, as you can see at the neckline here, and we have the whole dress. So I've laid it how it would be sewn. So the next step would be to sew up the sides, so here and the other side as well. And then as you can see, I have our two pieces, the two pieces that are going to have gathers and that are going to fit into these parts that we carved out of both sides of the dress. One thing that I would definitely advise is that on these pieces, you notch, just make a tiny snip, or maybe mark with your tailor's chalk or something the center point, because you want to make sure that that midpoint, while you're gathering it and sewing it onto this part of the dress, you want to make sure that that midpoint aligns with the side seam of your dress, so that you don't have full gathers on one side, maybe the front or the back, and have the other side be scanty. You want the volume to be evenly distributed, and this is a nice little hack to achieve that. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's just go on and sew the side seams of the dress first of all. And we are done with the side seams. So here's what our dress looks like right now, and the next thing we're going to do is to create our gathers and attach these two pieces to the two sides of our dress. Oh my goodness, we're so close to the end right now. But anyway, now you could do a basting stitch that just runs all the way across the top of this, and then sort of pull it, tug it to create those gathers, which I think I might do. But sometimes I just like to freehand it, and like I said earlier, right, you want to make sure that you mark the midpoint, right? So I use my tailor's chalk to mark the center of this, just so that my gathers are evenly distributed. So I'm going to pin that point, make sure it aligns with my side seam, and then I'm going to pin this part of the piece as well. Just pin it all the way to somewhere around here, just before the curve starts, because this is where the gathers happen, at the curved area. At this straight area here, it just goes straight down, like there are no gathers here, at least the way I want the dress. So I'm going to pin down these straight parts, and then I'm going to pin the center points to the side seam, and I'm going to do that for both. And yeah, so I'll know to gather up this area right here where there are no pins, and then go for just a regular straight stitch, like just no gathers in this area right here. If you have a gathering foot, which I really recommend, I need to get one. If you have a gathering foot, that will make it a lot easier and faster as well. So yeah, let me go ahead and pin this first of all. Okay, so here is what I was talking about. So I pinned down all the way up here, and then I left this area open, and I pinned the center at that point, so that I know that all of this volume goes into this arc right here, just the front area. And then I have the same thing on the back. So I'm going to go on my machine, and with my regular straight stitch, I'm going to go ahead and sew this. So like I said, if you have a gathering foot, then you want to use your regular foot to do the straight stitch up to somewhere around here where you have the curve, and then change over to your gathering foot and use that here to create the gathers and everything. So yeah, so I'm going to head on and do that right now. So we are finally in the final phases of this dress. All that's left to do is mostly finishing touches, namely closing up the back and installing the zipper as well, attaching the sleeves, and then finally hemming it to finish everything off. So of course I'm going to start first with the zipper, and all I'm really doing is to use a straight stitch to sew this back closed, and I would stop somewhere around here, definitely like making sure that my zipper is long enough to cover the rest of the open space, right? Like, so I have a pretty long zipper, so I probably stop somewhere around here. You also want to make sure it's somewhere around the hip or slightly below the hip, just so you're able to enter the dress. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to insert my zipper up there where it should be, and then I would proceed to hem it, which nothing complicated. I'm really just going to do a double rolled hem, which is where you fold it once and then you fold it again. So yeah, so I'm going to do that. Now what I really want to explain is the sleeves, and these sleeves, honestly, they're really easy. All you need to do, I have my elastic band here because I'm putting an elastic band on on the hem of the sleeve. So for the hem, I'm going to do a double fold, right? Kind of like a double rolled hem, but it's going to be slightly wider because we need the elastic band to be able to pass through that. So I'm going to do that, creating a tunnel for the elastic band all through the hem of the sleeve. And I'm going to try out like my elastic band on my arm just to make sure that it's not too tight and it's not too loose. But really, the easiest thing to do would be to take the measurement of wherever you need the elastic band to sit, and then take out a few inches, maybe 2 to 3 inches, depending on how snug you want it to be. So with that length of elastic band, I channel it through that tunnel that we've created down here and pin it in place, because at that point this part of the sleeve is still going to be open, right? So pin it on this end and pin it on the other end as well. And then I'm going to come up here, and basically the same method I used here to create these gathers is kind of what I intend to use to also attach my sleeve to my armhole. So I'm going to close the underarm and thereby securing at this hem the elastic bands. And when I come up here to attach the sleeves to the body, I'm really just going to create gathers as I go. I do that manually just because I don't have a gathering foot right now. So if you have a gathering foot, like I said before, then this is the perfect time to use it. So I'm going to manually create the gathers while I attach the sleeve to the body of the dress. So really all I'm doing, creating the tunnel for the elastic band, pass the elastic band through, close the underarm, and then attach it to the body of the dress. And that is basically everything that is left to do. So I'm going to head on now and do that, and then I'll show you what the dress looks like at the end. So yeah. I really love it. I love the fit of it, and personally I'm obsessed with the color, but I wish there was more volume here, like with these side pieces. But other than that, I think it's a really cute dress. I love it. I really love it. And the length, perfect. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comment section. I really love this dress, and I posted a video with this dress on TikTok, and people really loved it as well. But quick confession, when I first finished this dress, I did not like it. Like, I don't know, it's something kind of fell off, but I don't know, now I like it. Like, the dress is kind of growing on me. I don't know, it's really cute. The color is the cutest thing. But thank you so much for watching. I will see you in my next video, and if you haven't subscribed already, why not? Like, why not? I showed you how to make this cute dress. Please subscribe so you don't miss other fun projects like this, and let me know what you think in the comment section. See you in my next video. Bye.